Return of the Mount Hua Sect, Chapter 201. Let's just call it my whim. If you look at the central plains as if it were a chessboard, the place where you want to place your stone to make a path to escape from all this encompassing siege isn't on the inside, but on the outside. Even if you make an alliance on the inside, it won't change anything.
Do you think Mount Hua is worth that much? Mount Hua isn't even in the 9th grade sects anymore.
It's just because we aren't part of the 9th grade sects that we're worth it. Would we be crazy enough to join hands with the Tang family if we were? We'd rather hang with the other sects.
Tanggenak looked at Chongmyung with a bewildered face. Even if that was true, people don't usually say such things, especially in front of the lord of the Tang family.
Let's talk without pretense, because I don't have the hobby of talking in circles for nothing. The Tang Lord is trying to hold back the other sects from besieging the Tang family by taking the hands of Mount Hua. That is your true purpose. If the rumors spread that the Tang family formed an alliance with Mount Hua, of course they will start to become conscious of our sect. That will ease the scrutiny on your family.
Tanggenak let out a low sigh. Tanggenak eased his form and sat tall as he looked at Chongmyung with a slightly serious face. I think I've misjudged you.
How did you judge me?
That you're a brat with strong martial arts. I'll have to change it to a brat who also has strong martial arts.
Tangbo, you bastard! Just you wait. Why didn't you take care of your descendants, you stupid bastard?
Not knowing what was going on in Chongmyung's head, Tanggenak simply looked at him and said nothing. What is this? Tanggenak hadn't had much experience with people being so direct with him. In particular, he had never felt so thoroughly exposed, and that too to a child who hadn't lived half his life. With such helplessness in heart. In Tanggenak's head, the evaluation of Mount Hua and Chongmyung were spot on, and the change in these plans were also right. I admit it, I wanted that. Tanggenak simply acknowledged Chongmyung's words. It wasn't a good idea to lie around someone who so clearly saw through him. Negotiations would only become more difficult if the two sides couldn't trust each other. It was better to admit it from the start. So does Mount Hua have other thoughts?
No, it isn't different, but... In our alliance, the Tang family mostly gains a number of liberties, while Mount Hua has too many constraints, so it's unfair. I want a justifiable compensation, not something that is to be given out in a condescending manner. A just compensation.
Chongmyung looked at Tanggenak with calm eyes.
That will be the right deal.
True. Then Before Tanggenak could finish his words, Chongmyung cut Tanggenak's words.
But before that...
Chongmyung's smile had vanished.
Let us make one thing certain. Here, the Tang family is not helping out Mount Hua, but Mount Hua is helping out the Tang family. So get rid of the thought of looking down on us. I am representing Mount Hua now.
At Chongmyung's words, Tanggenak's face went stiff. In that brief moment, Tanggenak's expression changed several times, and the words which came out after those changes didn't carry much power. It seems I've made a mistake. Tanggenak got up from his seat and bowed to Chongmyung. Tanggenak of the Sichuan Tang family apologizes to Chongmyung, the disciple of Mount Hua.
I accept that apology.
Chongmyung smiled. The two of them then sat down in their seats without another word. Although the outer appearance hadn't changed from the first time, their feelings had changed. What will the Tang family have to do for Mount Hua to hold hands with us?
There are 3 conditions.
3.
The first is weapons.
Tanggenak's face went stiff. The poison and needle techniques of the Tang family will not go outside this family under any circumstance. If you want the Tang family's techniques, assume that this negotiation will not go through.
It isn't that. What good will your needles and poison do for Mount Hua?
Then, Chongmyung, without another word, pulled out his sword from the waist. It was very rude to draw a sword at the lord of the Tang family without permission, but Tang Genak assumed that there was an intention for it and watched silently.
See this?
Chongmyung's plum blossom sword was broken from the middle. It isn't of good quality.
Well, I might have been too rough with it, but it wasn't a very good sword in the first place. This was bound to happen. There was no money in Mount Hua. Now we have money, but we have a hard time finding people who make good swords in bulk.
Because the other sects have already taken them.
Right, but here we have some of the best makers, and making swords can be done like steaming dumplings.
Isn't there a saying that skilled calligraphers don't blame the brush?
Nonsense! If you go visit a skilled calligrapher, I'm sure you'll see they have over hundreds of brushes.
Right. Tang Genak nodded his head. It was true that the Tang family had craftsmen who were the best in the world, and that they spared no investment in making good weapons. So he didn't hate the words of Chongmyung, who understood the importance of weapons.
The fact that I can show off my skill, even if the sword is bad, means that I can show off my skills in full power if I get my hands on a very good sword. I have heard that the smelting technique of the Tang family is the best, and I would be grateful if our plum blossom swords could be made by your family.
I will accept this. It isn't too difficult. Considering the power of the Tang family, making swords from Mount Hua was nothing huge. So that meant that the next two conditions would be bigger ones. The second,
give us one skill.
Tang Genak frowned. You seem to know well, and yet keep asking unreasonable things. The techniques and legacy of the Tang family cannot be passed on unless they are of blood.
You keep saying the same thing. I wasn't speaking about the legacy.
Then, not the legacy of the Tang family. Was there anything more in the family? Chongmyung, who received the curious gaze of Tang Genak, took off his shirt, and he began to untie the bandage which had been wrapped around his stomach. Now, there was only a bit of redness left in the place where the wound had been. In just 3 days, the stab wound had been healed completely. It has recovered well.
That's because the medical skill was good.
You don't mean?
Yes, what I want is the medical skills of the Tang family.
Tang Genak's expression darkened. The medical skills of the Tang family. Of course, it couldn't be called the Tang family's legacy, because the real legacy of the Tang family were their daggers, poison, and needles. But this wasn't something that could be easily passed on, because there was no origin. Why are you interested in that? No one has ever wanted to learn it.
Because I need it.
Chongmyung shrugged. As Tang Genak said, the medicine wasn't of much value to the family. It was because it was impossible to open a practitioner center for the Tang family with just these skills. The reason? It was simple. Because diseases couldn't be cured, and the skills of the Tang family mainly focused on external and internal injuries. It was clear if one thought about it. Unless one was a warrior, who else would get external injuries, poisoned, or injured? Even still, if a medical center was opened just for that, people would assume that the person who opened it was hoping for people to get hurt. But
Mount Hua needs it.
In his dream, Tangbo had informed him just how important medicine was. He didn't even listen to Tangbo then. He thought that if he could get stronger than anyone, he wouldn't have to consider getting injuries. The stronger one was, the less chances they had of getting hurt. But what was the reality that Chongmyung had faced? Everyone had died. If Chongmyung had known or learned the medical skills of the Tang family, he might have been able to save a few people. But at that time, all Chongmyung knew was to become stronger.
Could internal organs that had been slashed with internal ki be reattached again?
It sounded like nonsense, but if Chongmyung had known about it, then he could have saved Tangbo. He couldn't forget the face of Tangbo, who was holding his hand around the knife in his heart even now. He didn't want the disciples of Mount Hua to go through that, because the helplessness and sadness were too much for just one person to bear. Please pass the medical skills of the Tang family to Mount Hua, and that will lead to people visiting the Tang family, which would naturally help to grow our friendship. It isn't easy. I will have to convince the family. Which is why I picked it as a condition. Tanganak frowned. This wasn't easy. It definitely was not. I'll try to get it done. If that was the price for bringing over Mount Hua to their side, he would give it away. No, he had to get Mount Hua on his side. Up to this, I can somehow get it done. But after hearing this, I am afraid to know the third and final one. It is probably the biggest one, right? Yes, it is the biggest. What is that? Chongmyung took a deep breath and looked straight at Tanganak and said it. This wasn't a request from Mount Hua, but a request from Chongmyung. Think of Mount Hua as a friend. Isn't that natural? We have an alliance. Not as an alliance, but as a friend. Chongmyung spoke resolutely. It isn't an alliance that you can abandon when you want, depending on the situation and circumstances. But rather, think of us as a friend you can reach out to when you are in trouble. That is what I want. This meant nothing. This wasn't something which could be promised, and it wasn't something which would be followed just because it was promised. And Chongmyung knew it well. Still, I can't help but talk about it. I don't understand. Tanganak said frankly. Everything you asked so far had a reason. But I don't see a reason for this one. Am I missing something in the picture? You aren't. Then why are you saying this? I don't know. Chongmyung closed his eyes. Daoist Hyung! Don't make that face, damn bastard! Chongmyung opened his eyes as he shrugged. Let's just call it my whim. Whim. Tanganak opened his mouth with a stiff face. Do you know? What? There are countless people who want to be with the Tang family. Right, because the Sichuan Tang family is that good. But no one has ever said that they wanted to be friends with us. This is interesting. And the answer? The answer is... Tanganak smiled. We don't know how to treat close friends. So, it would be good if Mount Hua could tell us what it means to be friends. Chongmyung chuckled. It isn't that difficult. Then that's good. Tanganak smiled and nodded his head. So unfamiliar. Friend. A friend. It was something he hadn't imagined at all. But this childish term tickled Tanganak's heart. It was even more so because these words had come from the strangest person he had ever seen. I accept these 3 conditions. Yes, then. I understand that the alliance between the Tang family and Mount Hua has been established. The question now is whether Mount Hua will accept this. Write a letter. Send it to Mount Hua with my seal and it'll work out. Is your influence in Mount Hua that huge? No, rather... Huh? Chongmyung spoke. The sect leader and the elders are people who had been ignored all this time. If they know the Tang family situation, they will shed tears and ask whether you guys are happy with these conditions. Tanganak's cheeks trembled. To be treated like pitiful people. Well, I understand. Then, with this, where are you going? Tanganak, who flinched at Chongmyung's question, looked at him. Is there anything left? I need to go and get things done. We have to negotiate. Didn't we do that a while ago? Ah, that was with Mount Hua's representative. Chongmyung poked his finger somewhere. This. It was at the wound. Now, Chongmyung's finger was in contact with the red scar. Tanganak's eyes trembled. Didn't we give you the pill? Eh? This is a huge wound. You're trying to get one up over a man who had barely escaped death with just one pill?
1 pill for a life that had almost been lost? I survived just because it was me. But if it was someone else in my place, if it was anyone else, they would have died. But you just want to throw a pill at the wounded man and wipe his blood off your hands? No. Ugh. The way the Tang family deals with their friends is really cold. They act like they will give anything, but this isn't what a friend is. A person must have faith.
Tanganak's face turned bright red. What do you want?
Can I just say it?
I cannot bear to hear you say that the Tang family has no faith. Tell me what it is. What do you want?
Okay.
Chongmyung blinked his eyes.
But it isn't easy.
Just say it. Chongmyung searched the robe he took off.
Let's see. It was here. Here.
Huh? What? A book? Chongmyung smiled as he held that book to Tanganak.
It would be too long to put it into words, so I wrote it in advance. You don't have to praise me for being prepared. This is basic. We are both comfortable here.
Tanganak realized then the anger which was forming in his mouth. He realized that it was something that happens only when a person meets a devil. After a while, the members of the Tang family who saw Tanganak coming out of his office, walking around, were all talking about how their lord has been walking around with a crazy face they had never seen before.